And there was people who played in bands on my street, and I would go hang around with these older guys all the time, and I just wanted to be near music all the time.
Well, what were those bands? They were more like Chicano rock?
They were not. My sisters were into Chicano rock. They were very into the Midnighters.
Okay.
And I heard the Midnighters very early, and actually one of my earliest memories of what I love about music, and it sticks with me very much, is that when I was probably 8, 9, or 10 years old. Of course, I wanted to be a teenager already, like 9 or 10-year-olds do. But I remember my cousins and my sisters getting ready to go to a dance where the Midnighters were playing, maybe somewhere in Lakewood, or maybe at El Monte Legion Stadium or somewhere. But I remember them being very excited about it, and getting ready and listening to records and getting ready. And I just have this real thought that I had this real feeling of their excitement, and I was like, even though I don't know what the Midnighters is, one day that's what I want, and that's what I wanted, and then finally when I did hear the Midnighters, I understood what their excitement was about. But in my neighborhood, the bands were more like, high school bands, and they played cover versions.
Okay.
Bands, Chicago, and then there was another, and then they had their rock band, and so I was very into, hard rock, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and things like that. So I heard so many different kinds of music growing up in Monte, and a lot of it was quite alternative, for the times,
Like
I think Black Sabbath or Jimi Hendrix or something, even though it's mainstream and them as big now. When they first came out, they were quite shocking. Extreme,
and that was popular in the community?
Extreme, yeah, definitely. And definitely with my cousins and sisters. I mean, maybe that might have been the Ramones or Patti Smith. I was, as a kid, and through these friends and music people, I got very much into reading magazines, rock magazines like Cream magazine or Circus magazine. And this magazine that came out called New York Rocker, I was very, very enamored with, and it came out of the glam scene, really. I was already a teenager when glam rock and David Bowie and Rodney Bingenheimer's English disco in Hollywood was happening. But I remember reading about New York and seeing this new wave of bands happening, and I think Patti Smith or the Ramones was probably I think Patti Smith before I heard the Ramones. I think that came out earlier.
And how did you find them?
Through magazines.
Okay, right.
I just read about them, and I saw photos, and I thought, this is something I will be interested in, and so I bought the record, and I was immediately floored by it. It was, amongst other things, it was very irreverent, but very worshipful of music too, and that was really exciting. And also, she had a lot of references to things I liked, like Jimi Hendrix and Andy Warhol, and then hearing of new things. She was conjuring French poets and aliens and knife fights and transvesticism and just all kinds of things that for me was like a whole. To me, New York was this whole world, and a record like that, like Lou Reed's records and her records, were very, to me, a world that I didn't know at all from living in San Gabriel Valley, but I also dreamed that I could feel it. They painted such a vivid picture of what it was, and in my teenage mind, what I thought I would want to aspire to in life.
And how did
drugs and transvestites? I'm a teenager. Normal.
How did your family and the community react to your interest in the alternative culture? What did your parents do to begin
My
with?
parents, my father was a welder for stainless steel productions in Burbank, so he commuted every day from Monte to there. So he worked there isn't the entire length of his life that I was alive. That was his job. And my mother was a housewife, but she was also a painter and an artist. And so they were very encouraging. They didn't mind my craziness as long as I would stay in school. My mother and father always pressed that education was the most important thing. They were very sure of that, and my studies were the most important thing, even though and I did pretty well in school. Actually, learning was easy for me, and I graduated honor student and this and that, so that wasn't a problem for me. So I go, and I was the youngest boy and only boy and youngest in a Chicano family. You can imagine what kind of murder I got away with. But the I'm trying to get my train of thought back. But so education, but the reaction was pretty positive. I mean, I wasn't told, like, don't do this and don't wear platform shoes and don't wear satin trousers or anything. And then when punk came, my parents weren't afraid of it. My parents grew up in downtown LA and in Boyle Heights, and they were not too worried about me, I don't think. I was always very independent and a very adventurous soul, as a kid. I'd ride my bike to El Monte, all the way to El Monte, and Baldwin Park, and West Covina, and I was always interested in adventure. I always wanted to see what I couldn't see. I was always so inquisitive and wanting to experience what was beyond what was in front of me. So as I got older, but there was also that I wanted to escape. What I thought was a really boring life in the suburbs, but